it got to a point, I was so hurt and I was so angry and I was so distressed with the whole thing. And, she would write letters and, silly me, I read them. And at one point, I was so hurt and I was so angry. And I knew they were going to be together. And this moment said, you can kill them. You don't have to take this. And the realization in that moment that I truly had murder in my heart. I knew if I just couldn't go there. It scared me to death. It absolutely scared me to death. And I cried out to God, just going, I've blown it. I've absolutely blown it. I've totally blown it. And there's nothing I can do, and I can't fix it. And I'm going to do something crazy, and I don't want to do that. And I need you. I want you. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I just want to give this to you. I want to do this your way. I can't fix it. He's still going away. It's not gonna be fixed. So I want you. And then that same journal, the only other entry was when I said, I don't need you. I don't want you. I'm choosing this man. And I came to the place where it's like, wow, 13 years later, what did that choice get me? Where am I? And the journal entry that day was quite a lot different. It was crying out to God. It was repenting. It was confessing. It was realizing how crazy a choice I had made, when all along he was there. He was faithful. He never lied. He never forsake me. He wasn't ever going to. And I said I wanted to know him. I said I wanted to have a relationship with someone who understood betrayal, who understood what it was like to have someone turn their back on you. And I realized that that's what I had done to him.
When the consequences for our sin are coming in like a flood, it seems like they will never end. We feel trapped. We cannot stop wave after wave of the painful effects of the aftermath of our sinful choices. This is the experience of grief. Through chapter 2, we heard the voice of Jerusalem speaking out in despair and anger. Following the righteous advice of a prophetic voice, she cries out to the Lord, urging him to intervene primarily in the favor of her children who were dying in the streets. In chapter 3, we hear the voice of a man who has experienced the rod of the Lord's wrath. In verses 1 through 20, he describes the depth and the harshness of the path that the Lord had prepared for Jerusalem. He expresses the depth of his grief. His soul has no peace. He cannot remember being happy. He has no strength of any kind. He has lost all hope. And then in verse 21, we see a transformation from blaming God to crying out to him. The man remembers that the Lord is faithful to his covenant promises. He knows that God's love and faithful mercies do not change. Even in the day of judgment, God has kept his promise. This characteristic of God gives the man hope. In verse 21, we see that the man understands the purpose of the judgment that God has brought about. He is able to acknowledge his sin and hopes in the mercies of God. He is willing to wait on the Lord and seek him, recognizing that his deliverance can come only from God. Finally, he is able to acknowledge that learning to endure suffering can bring much wisdom and humility. The heart of God is to forgive, reconcile, and restore. It is not his wrath, but his mercy that has the last word. It is in this moment that God's heart is most clearly revealed as one who suffers with his wayward children and is clearly pained by their punishment as well as their rebellion. In this journey through grief, Jerusalem finds that the root of suffering is sin. She then understands that there is only one way out: repentance. Today we have witnessed how Jerusalem finally sees a light at the end of a dark tunnel of profound grief. Her knowledge of Yahweh has reached a deeper level. She can make sense of her suffering, putting her trust back in the love of her faithful husband. Grief is a dark, tough path. Reconciliation is a long and difficult journey driven by hope.